Often when people experience a loss, the loss of a loved one, an illness, an injury, something significant, there is a community that surrounds you. They bring in casseroles. They watch your kids so you can have time to yourself. But when no one knows what you're going through, there is no community, and it can feel incredibly lonely. Hello, and welcome to the Complex Couples Podcast. I'm Heidi. I'm a couples therapist and relationship coach specializing in mixed orientation marriages and mixed gender identity relationships. Whether you're just discovering this reality or you've been on this journey for a long time, this is the space where your marriage matters, your values matter, and your choices matter. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Complex Couples Podcast. Thanks so much for joining me. Today, I'm really thinking about those who have recently experienced a disclosure or discovery of something about their marriage that they didn't know before. And I'd just like to sit with those who are on that side and for the first time really seeing that their marriage is not what they thought it was and who are questioning that. And I want to talk a bit about the grief that comes with that. For many people, when you get married, you feel like you know your partner. And as you've had a marriage of years, and as that time goes on, there's often an assumption that you know most things about your partner. So when a partner discloses their sexuality or gender identity, or when you discover that a partner has engaged in infidelity or other kinds of secrecy, it can feel very, very much like a loss. Mostly because it's a loss of the story that you thought you had. And often, in these cases, the person who has been hiding their sexuality or gender identity has been dealing with a lot of shame, a lot of pain surrounding this, a lot of questioning of how and what to do about it. And so often they don't really want you to talk publicly about this. They may want you to keep it to yourself. And so that's what I would like to address a bit today, the grief and managing life when you're still in a place of trying to discern who to tell and how. So first, let's talk about the grief that's entailed here. This is a different kind of grief than most. When you've experienced a loss like this, it's very quiet. Often when other people experience a loss, the loss of a loved one, an illness, an injury, something significant, there is a community that surrounds you. They bring in casseroles. They watch your kids so you can have time to yourself. They come with hugs and a shoulder to cry on. But when no one knows what you're going through, they cannot help you grieve in that way. There is no community, and it can feel incredibly lonely. I will never forget my first church meeting after my husband had disclosed his sexuality to me. I actually remember feeling a tremendous peace in my heart. I attribute that to a God in heaven who was trying to reassure me. And at the same time, I felt so alone. I was in a room full of people, and yet I felt like none of them really knew what was going on for me or for my husband. And it was incredibly isolating. And my husband was still asking that I honor his wishes and not share this with people too quickly. So I wanted to honor that, and yet I really felt a need for support. There is a term for this kind of grief. It's called disenfranchised grief by psychologists, and that's really referring to grief that really other people don't really acknowledge. They struggle to see it for what it is. And often it's not that they don't know about your grief. It's often that they know, but they don't feel that it's justified that you should be grieving. But in this case, often people don't even know that there is something to grieve, that there is any kind of a loss. And so I think the first thing that is helpful is just recognizing to yourself that you have experienced a loss. You've experienced a loss of reality as you knew it, and it's going to take time to adjust, and it is okay to grieve. And grief includes a lot of emotions like anger, denial, bargaining, trying to negotiate your way out of this, depression and acceptance. And those are not in any particular order. They can come and go in any way, shape, or form. But the more you can acknowledge that this is part of the experience and something is not going wrong, the better off you will be. Something else that can be useful is recognizing that you have the ability to ask for help without explaining yourself. So it's okay to say to someone, hey, I'm going through something really hard and I can't really talk about it in detail, but I could really use a hug, or a friend, or a casserole, or I could use someone to take care of my kids for a couple of hours while I sift through some things that have been really hard for me. Asking for help can be a very important thing, to know that there are people who care about you. And you don't have to disclose everything to them to get the help that you need. One of the gifts that God gave me during the time period where I was going through this stage was, prior to my husband's disclosure, I had been praying every day for someone to help, someone that could use my service. And I had had answers most days. I would have a name come to mind. But during this experience, I remember being frustrated because I would pray for people who needed help and I got nothing. And one day I was praying about that and told God, like, hey, I could really use like some names here. Why aren't you giving me any names? And the impression that came to my mind was, Heidi, you're the one who needs help right now. And it's okay for you to receive. That was a very useful realization for me. So I hope you'll take my permission and know that it's okay to ask for help or to be your own help in your grief. So the next thing I want to talk about is if you and your spouse disagree on telling others about this situation. That can be a really difficult position. Maybe you're someone who processes things out loud and your spouse is much more quiet about it and they want to keep this close. And by this, like I said, that can be their sexuality, their gender identity, or infidelity, all of those things. And I would say that each of those things is a little different. And so you're going to have to figure out how to navigate that according to what you feel is best. My advice to you is to remember again that both of you matter. They matter and you matter. And so considering together who may be a safe person to tell that both of you feel comfortable with, both of you trust, can be a useful thing. And if you can't come to any conclusions, you may have to make choices based on what you believe is best for you, recognizing that it might disappoint your partner that you're going to talk to someone else. But you do not have to navigate this alone. Sometimes it can be more comfortable to go to a support group or an anonymous group where people do not know who you are. They don't know your partner. And so you're not worried about the judgment that is going to come or the repercussions of them knowing something that could be difficult for them to forgive. In that case, we have a wonderful thing in technology that we can look up Facebook groups of support groups for spouses of LGBTQ individuals, or there are intersections between religious groups and LGBTQ communities. Looking for those. I know in my community, the LDS community, there is North Star and Lift and Love. Those are both communities with support groups, and they have them for spouses as well. And they're completely free. So those are some really good options if you feel like you can't talk to someone you know about this. My biggest goal for you is that you can go through this without feeling alone. And it can be difficult when you don't know anyone else who's going through this to not feel like you're the only one it's ever happened to. I know that that's how I felt originally, and it's amazing to me now because I have multiple people in my life, some who were good friends even before the disclosure, and finding out that they are actually in the same situation has been such a gift, but I never would have known had I not talked about my own experience. So, in conclusion, I'd just like to say, if no one has recognized your grief, let me be the person who does. I see how you're going to work every day. I see how you're taking care of kids while in tremendous amounts of pain. I see how difficult it is to function with something this enormous in your life. And I see what it's like to grieve with no casseroles. You're not alone. There are people who understand. There are communities that can help. And whether or not anyone else sees your grief, God does. He's with you. He watches over you. And He knows you. I hope this was helpful. And I'll see you next week.